to a YouTube channel near you. Warning, some viewers may find the following footage deeply disturbing.
Content advisory warning. The contents of this podcast will offend the easily offended. What you are about to hear is not intended for children, the puritanical, or the narrow-minded. We will offend. Sometimes we will make corrections, but we will always discuss without canceling, because we cannot become better individuals if we are not willing to have open and honest discussion. This is your only warning.
For more awesome content, like and subscribe now.
Hello and welcome to From Here to Paternity, the dumpster fire of conversation. I am Scott, the man who watches birds and polishes turds. I will pass it on to Big D.
Hey, I'm Big D. I'm the man with the plans, and welcome to, the apocalypse of the AI. Anyway, I'll pass you on to Eric.
Hello, I am Eric, the Unapologetic Geek, and even though I may be a robot, that doesn't mean I support AI. And I'll pass it on to my other co-host, Joe.
Hey, I'm Joe. Raw and Unprepared. How's it going?
So from the start, I want to just kind of talk about some of the places that you can find us. We're on Twitter. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, obviously. And then, Eric, you have another channel?
That is correct. The Unapologetic Geek here on YouTube. Actually, if you don't get enough of us here, some of us will be on my podcast or on my channel at noon today, which is in 2 hours. Noon Central, that is, to talk about disaster movies. That'll be fun. And if you like sci-fi classic video movies and you like hearing about their histories and me reviewing them and stuff, you can come to my channel. I'm really tired, so I'm gonna ramble like this a lot.
Yeah, I am.
We are all really tired right now. This is early for us. Also, I have a channel, as you can see behind me. Whoops, wrong way. Harold the Hatter on YouTube, Twitch, TikTok, where I do family-friendly entertainment for people to watch, and it's fun and it's growing. Eric, what do you have coming up next? Go ahead.
Well, like at 2:00 today, I'm dropping just a compilation of all my Star Trek movie reviews. So that's like an 1.5 hour long video you can watch. And then next week, I'm dropping a review of Brainstorm, a easily forgotten movie from the early 80s starring Christopher Walken. And, yeah. Looking forward to that. It's kind of like a primordial version of Strange Days. It's great.
Oh.
Yeah, and there's
awesome.
a fascinating behind the scenes stuff about it. Because it was Natalie Wood's last movie. She died in the middle of the making of that movie. And if you know anything about Natalie Wood's death, it's all salacious and there's all kinds of mystery about what really happened. And Christopher Walken was there and blah blah blah. So I get into that a little bit, not too deep, because there's other YouTube channels that'll go way deeper into that. But it definitely affected this movie big time. It's probably one of the reasons it's not really that well remembered, because the movie was unfinished and they had to kind of work around that. And the movie is kind of sloppy as a result, but it's definitely worth talking about.
Excellent. And then also, if you haven't seen Yeah, and if you haven't seen what's already been dropped, the Rocky Horror Picture Show review that Tug did, it is phenomenal.
Yeah,
it is
was really good.
absolutely yeah.
I've been
so
getting a lot
excellent.
of love for that one, so
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
You did a
Yeah.
really good job on that.
And I was all worried that it wouldn't get the positive reception that it's gotten, so I'm happy.
No, I posted it actually in my just on my general Facebook, with we older people, we use Facebook, and like a lot of my neighbors are actually like, telling me, oh, that was a good, like, I'm glad that they did a video on that. That's such a good movie. And like, it's a conversation piece for us.
What is this Facebook thing you speak of?
I know, like the younger kids. Yeah, I mean, YouTube is for old people now. Like, anyways,
Bring back my
very small children.
I think it's still around.
It is.
It's just for like musicians now, I think.
Yeah, it's not what it used to
Right.
be. It's not what it used to
Yeah.
be.
Just go back
The
to your
old
live
gray
journal.
mare, she ain't what she used to be. Hey, what she used to
Social
be.
media,
Hey,
what
what
is-
she used to be.
What is this you speak of? I still use bulletin boards.
Live journal, man. Kata. But no, like and for me, I'm working on episode. I just dropped another one of our Pal Worlds on Harold the Hatter. And I'm going to be going down and editing those down, all of my videos down, because on TikTok they have to be like 10 minutes. So I'm going to be chopping them up or shrinking them and decreasing them so that I can put them on TikTok too and just load that up. But I just dropped I think episode 23 of the Pal World, and then I'm finishing up episode 4 of We Are Wrexham, which is actually timely because Welcome to Wrexham season 3 is just started. So that's hopefully I get a little bump for that. But I try to do some fun stuff with that. I've improved my 23. I think my kids liked it a lot, and there's some funny stuff in there. And then Joe, what are you working on?
Just playing around with art. Yeah, doing my brainstorming right now, trying to come up with some concepts. I showed you the painting I worked on the other day.
Yeah.
Already, so. But yeah, just
And
relaxing
Joe,
right now.
Joe joined me on Twitch one night, and he was showing off his art as I was like doing gameplay stuff, and that was really fun. So yeah, check us out because we're trying to do some synergistic stuff to kind of like do fun things and everything. And then also I put in, if you go into the description, I put in a link for Tug's YouTube channel, for my YouTube and Twitch channel, and then for Joe's YouTube and Instagram channel. So check
And
those out
also
in the
Damien's
description.
home address, so you can go stalk him.
Yeah,
You go see the CN Tower for yourself.
Yes,
that's
yes.
right. Well, you don't have to go far.
display,
You don't have to
full
get
display.
that close.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can be several blocks away, and you can still see that thing. So.
Yeah, if you get too close, there is an admission fee.
yeah. So,
Yeah,
so,
you
one
have to
ticket
be at
per
least
ride.
this tall to ride, and of a certain age.
Open you up, count the rings, make sure it's right.
That's right. Okay. So we did all the where you can find us stuff. So Damien, why don't you bring us into what we're talking about today?
Oh, we're talking about AI, and well, how?
Why'd you want to talk about this?
Well, why I wanted to talk about it was because of AI drones, and AI technology's use in war currently, and not just war. There's also there's peripherals, but I mean really it's the peripherals that have led into the use in war, mostly in Israel and in Gaza and in Ukraine as well. And this whole concept of handing the reins of control or even collection of reconnaissance data and so on and so forth over to AI, and then using its recommendation to end somebody's life in some cases, here. And just that's a scary thought. That's a the idea that we're just going to be like, okay, computer, you tell us who to kill kind of thing, because there's still supposedly you have to press the button like a human has to press the button for someone to be taken out by an
What do you mean
AI.
supposedly?
So, well, Okay, so I'll give you just a real quick quote. Simply pressing a fire button in response to indications from a computer without cognitive clarity or awareness does not meaningfully qualify as human control. So what they're talking about is the AI is collecting data on the target and then making a recommendation whether or not the human should press the button to kill the person, or for the AI drone or whatever to launch the munition or whatever it may be. And it's like, well, is that really control? I mean, is that really a human in charge here when the AI is feeding the data to the person who is then just going, oh, okay, click. It says it's a bad guy, so I'm going to shoot it. It's like, well, do we have any people here in the loop that are actually looking at all this data and then saying, yeah, that's probably the person that we're after, like the whole issue. What was it that happened in Israel, last month, where a whole bunch of aid workers got killed? Where'd that data collection for that come from? Was that partially AI driven, So
Well, humans.
I don't know. Did you
too,
get any?
Yeah.
I didn't find anything on it. So there's
okay.
But
like,
just talking.
This is not a new issue. I think AI, the rise of AI now, is making it more prescient than it ever has been before. But I'm the sci-fi movie nerd. This is just war games. We're just talking about war games.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you take into account too, I don't know if you've ever read into the training of facial recognition.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody with a darker, and anybody with a darker complexion, it can't recognize because it was trained with a not a even amount of face models.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, yeah, it's like the face IDs on your phones not working well in Africa.
Yeah,
yeah.
Well,
Come on.
Yeah, and then you're putting the computer going, is this the right person? And it's going, yeah, sure.
And just to bring that home, of if it's flawed and how many, how often is this happening? Israel used AI to strike more than 11,000 targets in Gaza since Hamas militants launched a deadly assault on Israel on October 7th. So that's just a quote from an article from Politico.
But conversely, they also used AI to help stop all those Iranian missiles. So
true. There are positives too. Yeah, for sure. So
I'm just playing devil's advocate here, like the idea of AI in military.
I'm not necessarily trying to call out Israel directly. I'm just calling out what they're.
No, I know that's not what this is about. This is just about the use of it in war in general.
They are using it in this theater right now because it is that time when this is emerging and it is, we're seeing what it can do. But it's like it's a scary thought to me that we're handing over all of the thought process to a computer.
What
that may have been trained improperly.
So would you agree we have the most advanced military?
Us, the United States? Yes.
Okay. What is our AI system, like an AI drone program, called?
Classified.
No. No, it's out there.
Okay.
What
is it?
It's the Valkyrie system.
Ah.
And we've been working on it, like the news about it, because when you brought this up, I was like, okay, well, let me look up. Again, I hate that term research because I'm not researching it.
You're looking.
I Googled it. Right. I looked it up. Right. I always want to emphasize that because people think that they're doing meta-analysis, which a meta-analysis is collecting all of the scientific articles on a topic, or as much as you possibly can, reviewing it all, and then analyzing that information, right? So that's a meta-analysis. That's a research of the research, right? Mm-hmm. Google is not that, right? Mm-hmm. And that is looking up research, right? That's researching. So I always like to emphasize that because not for us, but for just the general populace and public. We are not doing it's early in the morning and we're still kind of whatever. I don't care. We're not doing fucking research. Okay. You're looking it up. You Googled it. All right. So
I think he was the
I
first
Googled-
one to cuss today.
Problem.
I know.
there's a
It's
semantic
early.
problem.
Scott wins the prize. Yay.
Yeah. No, it's early and like
hasn't
it's
said
even
the
like
O
it's
word
even
yet,
early. I know. No. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, that's coming. But no,
Oh,
like
yeah.
my
That's
O
what she-
face will
that's
come.
what she
No. But no, like well done.
But no, like the idea, the research as
Yeah.
a word has been twisted
Right.
because there's academic research, which is more than just Googling, but it is mostly just looking up other information and rearranging it to suit whatever you're trying to do. And then there's scientific research, which is a completely separate subject, you know.
But
And even with
But
academic
it's-
research,
it's-
it also involves interviewing real people and doing more than just going into the library, you know.
right. And so like right. No, right. And again, it's used colloquially to try and sound as if you're doing more than you're actually doing, right? Or to sound smarter. It's
It's like the
a
old
way of-
anti-vax
to
cry.
provide
Do your
yourself
own
clout.
research.
yeah. You're
Right.
probably not
No.
making it past the
Find
first
your echo
five
chamber.
Right.
first five
right, like-
options on Google.
Yeah. Okay. Tell me
have-
what
on-
your level 1 trial was whenever you did your own research, right? So
Yeah.
anyways.
I-
So,
I've
I've
tried to do my own research on, like, read several medical papers, and I'm going to tell you right now, I didn't understand but about maybe 70% of the words that were in there.
You got to read a
I'm
lot
saying-
of that shit
Yeah,
before.
I
it
no,
don't
starts
know
to-
medical. I don't know
Yeah.
medical vocabulary. You'd have
Right.
to take a medical vocabulary class to understand what that says. And until you do,
Right.
you really shouldn't read those and then think that you understand what it says.
Right,
You know,
right,
so-
right. Because it's even deeper than because you have to like the kinin system, the inflammatory system, like
Yeah, you
all
have
of
to
these
understand
different
all
like
those things,
you have to
yeah.
understand all of these different like levels, right? And you know, and so anyways, so that's what I'm saying. Like, you know,
And that's true
us-
with any like scientific research, because
Right, right.
Keep going.
And so like when I work with clients, I'm always saying, because again, we're a team. They know themselves better than I know them, right? But I know like certain things more than they do. Just like if I were going like I'm not gonna tell Damien how to build a house. It will crumble on my family and kill us all. Like
it's
like Damien.
it's very bold of
need
you to
tell-
assume you
need
could even get it
tell
to
half
stand
of
in
my
the first
clients.
Oh, I know, right?
Yeah.
Eric,
Any idea how many
that was so
doctors-
great. Yes,
How many
that is
doctors
very
have
bold
tried
of
to
me.
tell me how to build a house? It's like, excuse me.
Welcome
Do you have 25 years experience in this plus go to school
Yeah.
for it? No.
Right. So
Excuse me.
So yes. So anyways, I looked it up. It's the Valkyrie system. That came out, I think it was the article about it came out in 2022. So they've been working on it and we are still not there. Like we have
Tom
the
Cruise
most
still can't
so
do a German
when
accent. It's amazing.
I know, right? I know. and that was a great callback. But no,
excellent.
like and so to sit there, so especially when journalists who, I'm sorry, at this point the majority of journalists are very poorly educated. Like
No shit. Yeah.
there are some, and again, like any field, there are some that are excellent and they do really big deep dives. I trust them, like, and they'll say what they don't know, right? But so many journalists are so ignorant of the topics that they're covering. And part of it is because, well, I've talked to the experts without considering what their bias is, and I'm listening to just one side, right? So like I'm listening to Wall Street, and this is what Wall Street tells me. All the people on Wall Street tell me this, right? Okay, what about the counterpoints? No, the people on Wall Street are all correct, right? They have no bias for putting out an agenda or propaganda or even just general bias because of the culture that they're in, right? You got to get an outside source. Anyways, outside, view. And some of them, like, again, journalists are oppressed just like every other person. So they don't have the time, effort and the bandwidth in order to do all this stuff. So that's where I have a lot of issues. So they'll use things that they don't fully comprehend or understand or concepts. and make it seem like we're further along. AI warfare is so like, we've been using AI in healthcare since the 90s. Like, radiology has been using AI since the 90s, and it is commonplace use in radiology, right? Looking at like scans, MRIs, things like that. And that can't tell you like what the diagnosis is. Like, we've been using it for 30 years and we're still not at a place of like, oh, this is what it is. This is what we need to, you know, or any of that stuff.
Is it just used to highlight like an abnormality? Something that like, just something to stand,
Pretty much, yeah.
just to point you in a direction.
All it does, exactly. All it does is it helps with, out of 1,000 scans, right, which would take forever to find, right, and would slow down someone saving someone that's having a stroke, right, to find that blockage, that tiny freaking blockage, right? And it doesn't find the blockage. It says like, hey, this is funky. You tell me what it is. That's all it does. And then the human has to go in and actually go like, no, this isn't it. That's a shadow on the imaging. Because again, if the person taking an X-ray doesn't do it right, that you can get reflections, you can get, you know, and a radiologist understands those things, right? This wasn't taken at the correct angle because again, it was a radiology tech, which they're excellent, but they don't have the training of a radiologist. And you wouldn't want them to, because that's a waste of the radiologist's time. You know, it's incredibly expensive and slows us down. But the radiologist is aware of these things. AI is not. We're not there yet. We're nowhere near yet. So to sit like, so I want to give a little bit of a preface of this like fear mongering that media does a lot, right? Because we've been watching too many like Terminators and, you know, like all these disaster movies that love to play on our fears, that we're like, oh my God, we're there yet.
Oh, they are coming. They are coming, Scott.
I don't know. I don't doubt that they're coming, right?
I'm not saying we're there right now. This is like
right.
the T,
Right.
not even the T1. This is like the T.025. You know,
no, this isn't even that. No, like we're not even like, we can't even get AI to like help us in dictating notes so that your healthcare provider isn't spending like hours of burnout.
Yeah, I'm gonna need to make sure the
patients.
AI knows exactly how many fingers I have before it tells me where my tumor is.
Right? Or how many arms? I don't have an arm coming out of the middle of my chest. Like, what are you?
Actually, have you seen some of the newer stuff that's out there?
No. Like,
it has gotten so much better.
We'll get to
But
that.
no, Damien, what you're not seeing, right? Because the image behind me, that is an AI image.
Yes, it is.
Do you know how many I had to create?
Oh, I'm sure.
And throw away before I got to that?
Yeah.
Literally over 100 images that I made of doing the exact same one.
Yeah.
Nope. Delete. Nope. Delete. Nope. Delete. Nope. Delete. Nope. Delete. Oh my freaking God, please. Oh my God. Come on. Can I get a decent... And then I showed you guys
to create
4.
that, you know.
I showed you 4, right? And that, again, those were the absolute best 4 that I could get to this. So that's what I like. I want to preface everything that we're talking about with where we actually are before, so that we don't like make people like terrified that they're coming. They take our jobs. Right?
The Terminator is not coming for you. He is not here yet.
Right.
But in time. I'm just saying is that the reason I wanted to bring this whole concept up was because it's something that people need to be aware of so we can watch it and not just roll over and say it's okay.
Yes.
And here's another little tidbit of information about the development of like AI drones and AI technology in like the drone, you know, sector, is that most of this stuff is being developed by private companies, not governments, private companies that are building these things. Quite often, some of it is purpose-built military, and that stuff falls into our treaties with other countries and whether they can be exported there and so on and so forth. And these are all American companies I'm talking about here. And I'm not actually going to name them. I'm not going to call them out, other than one, Skydio. Because Skynet, Skydio, all they need to do is merge with like a company that has net in the name, and then Skynet. But anyway, they just create reconnaissance drones, But a lot of these like drones are being created with like pre-programming that's designed for civilian use kind of stuff, but then they're being reprogrammed by their end users, which are Israel, Ukraine, so on and so forth. To carry either carry munitions like we've seen with Ukraine grenade dropping drones and stuff like that, or otherwise to identify specific types of targets and so on and so forth. And they're basically being reprogrammed to be mission specific rather than general, civilian use, kind of like drones for doing topography and stuff like that. So a lot of this stuff I'm just saying is like the repurposing the same technology that's being used for other, non-military things. So, and it's very easy.
I think the thing that I would be more afraid of in the long term, with the use of AI in the military, isn't necessarily what like the first world would do with that technology, because we would, we would probably do some shady shit and some bad things would probably happen. But I'm more worried about authoritarian states or rogue actors, or, even fucking China, because they'll take this technology and use it poorly and make mistakes that will lead to awful outcomes when they're already trying to do something awful, probably, That's what I'm more worried about in the long term, is that technology falling into the hands of people we wouldn't trust with them. And I'm not saying you should trust the U.S. military. I don't trust the U.S. military, but I trust it more than I trust, some like Iran or North Korea, That's what I'm worried.
Absolutely. Well, and where I get worried about it is, like with drone warfare, is that it's so much cheaper than actual than other warfares, right? And so like when you talk about like North Korea and they've already got nuclear weapons, and we again are like, we've got to build up the military and we got to build up defense, like that particular party allowed like that allowed North Korea to get a nuclear weapon because again, we got distracted in other ways, right? And so we were, because of other influences and
trying to keep the genie out of the bottle doesn't work. So,
right? No, I don't disagree. But then you give like North Korea and again China, like first off, my fear of going to war with China, which I feel like a lot of people in the military industrial complex, like first, like they're drooling over Iran, and Iran would be a nightmare, like to go to war with. Like that would, like if we thought Iraq was bad,
oh no,
like we'll quote unquote win, but there's like we didn't win the Iraq war. Like if like as much of a win of that was like we beat their army, right? But as much of a win as that was, Iran will be so much worse. Right, I know.
That's not the topic. We're not here to talk about which wars.
Right, but no. What I'm saying is no. But what I'm saying is so like as much of a concern like that Iran is, right? China would be even worse because first off, they've got
China's apocalyptic.
Billions of people, right? Yeah. And on top of it, they're already working on drone warfare, right? So like they don't like once we go in there and we're fighting like the people, they'll just wave us over, right? With like because they have cannon fodder for days, right? But then they're also working on the drone warfare. And the concern that I have is that they have a very strong relationship with North Korea, right? And again, and they're the ones that like keep the lunacy of North Korea at bay. right? Terrifying idea. And so, but like they're the ones that are keeping that genie in the bottle. But if North Korea were to get nuclear weapons like that, I like, or drones attached to their nuclear weapons, right? That to me would be like catastrophic, right? And so that's, and they're cheap enough for a country that's small and poor as North Korea in order to be able to get. Right, and that could be.
They don't have to pay
the real
$500 million to build a stealth aircraft to carry
a long range missile.
Yeah, or a long range, but they can just build a relatively modest couple $100,000 drone that's big enough with a strapped on off the shelf jet engine on it, and a little bit of radar absorbing paint and fucking send it on its way.
And then with AI, like. Okay, so we know that they're launching it.
I know.
So where the finish your point, and then I got something I want to say.
So even if we were to like wipe them off the map, like what AI provides you is the opportunity to have this autonomous vehicle that, if we don't care about what we're hitting, can be incredibly destructive. And a lunatic like Kim Jong-un, I feel would be like, if I'm going down, I'm taking as many people as I can with you. And that's where you're getting like all of this like massive launch. So they're autonomous and they're able to just like set the program and do it on their own and then just do widespread, damage. Right. And so that's where my concern gets in.
And then you have AI paired with loitering munitions, which are basically just drones that float around up there on low power mode, just kind of circling. Nobody can really see them until they, see a target of interest. So that can, and what if that target of interest is the wrong target? What if it's your own people? But where AI really is going to make a big difference in the future in warfare is going to be exclusion zones or exclusionary zones, whatever they call them, where they put up basically, radio and radar jamming and all that, so that you can't have like remote control vehicles going into a battlefield. And if you don't have a pilot on board, that's where like people come in, because we don't care about RF interference or, any of that. We can just still fly our plane right in there and see what we need to see and shoot it. Well, we don't want to do that anymore, so we'd rather let the robots do it. So now they're looking at AI as a way to get into, exclusion zones, so that, we can just set it and forget it kind of thing. Let them go in there, operate on their own, and take out the targets that we've asked them to take out. But the problem is what if they misidentify? That's what I keep coming back to, because we have this problem with AI not being very good at identifying things like language and faces and, making those decisions. And we're already doing that right now.
I wouldn't say I wouldn't say we're already doing that. Right.
If we've heard about it from the side, the point of, from the side where like, the human presses the red button, in the end, that's the end decision, is the human presses the red button, then there are ones out there that are disconnected from that, and we just haven't been told about it yet. That's the conspiracy theorist of me coming out.
I was about to say, like, Damien has just become Joe Rogan.
I also want to point out that just because an AI target could misidentify a target doesn't mean a human can't also misidentify a target.
No.
Like,
humans do it
we
all
do
the
that
time.
all the time.
Yeah.
Like,
and Chelsea Manning, that's why Chelsea Manning got put in prison.
Yeah. And in our military, the way military is set up, and I'm not here to debate,
because let me clarify. Chelsea Manning got put in prison for exposing that. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Eric.
But the way military setup is, you get orders and you follow those orders, right? Like, there is a certain amount of wiggle room where you're not supposed to push the big red button just because your superior officer told you to. But like that kind of mentality, that kind of hierarchical structure, which is how military works, and I'm not here to debate that. That lends itself to, if a higher up makes a big mistake in misidentifying a target, the guy at the bottom pushing the button doesn't necessarily know that, and he's still going to push the button. So whether it comes from an AI or it comes from some general who doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about, it's still the same result. Some innocent people die. And drones have been killing innocent people ever since they started being used in warfare. That's just the way it's been going. So there are some instances. the eventual use of AI, but I don't necessarily think it is as much of a game changer as our fears would have it be, you know?
Yeah. Well, there are instances
and I'll talk more
where-
about that in a minute when I get to my stuff.
All right, well, we probably need to move on then because it's already 10:39. So let's move on to your stuff.
Oh, okay. Well, like the way I see AI, I'm not scared of it. I really am not. As much as a sci-fi nerd as I am, and I do think you have to worry about what it could be used for. I think it's like any other technology. It's a tool. It all depends on the person wielding that tool at the end of the day, not the tool itself. And I think AI, especially like AI art, which is where I wanted to go, which is the more tame, less apocalyptic direction. I think a lot of the fears of AI art are very similar to the fears people had of just like computer graphics. People have been worried about like the computers taking our jobs ever since computers existed. And I think AI is kind of the same thing. People are afraid that they're no longer going to be able to work. And this hits home a little bit to me as a writer because AI has been used in writing. And it has been threatening jobs, especially in Hollywood. That's one of the reasons the WGA had that big strike last year.
Yep.
And what they got wasn't necessarily a win. They treated it like a win, but what the WGA got out of that strike was basically just a promise that Hollywood, the studios can't use AI to change an existing script and then prevent the writer from getting as much money back as they were originally going to get. Like, that's the only thing that was guaranteed. The studios can still use AI as much as they want. There's no rule against that. And the output of Hollywood lately lends one to be suspicious as to whether or not they're already using it. But bad writing is bad writing. It's always been with us. The big deal in writing circles now, like the ones that you have big names talking about, you got people like George R.R. Martin talking about it, and that's copyright and intellectual property, and how AI basically is gobbling up everything. Copyright be damned. And just spitting out, like, you know, the concatenation of all of that and coming up with a formula and producing something that is similar to all these other things. So is that infringing on copyright? And that's a tricky legal question that hasn't really been settled yet. They're still working on it. But one of the good news is that the Supreme Court has said that an AI, I don't remember the name of the case off the top of my head. I looked it up earlier and I read it and I forgot to write it down. But basically, AI produced content cannot be copyrighted. There's some, it's confusing and I don't really want to get into the details, but basically, because it isn't produced by one individual person, it does not belong to any one individual person or any corporation. It cannot belong to anybody. It's just copyright free.
Is it the Goldsmith decision?
I think that's it. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
So basically, the concern isn't necessarily, okay, let me back up. The good news, because of that, Hollywood studios would probably be less inclined to produce something strictly just with AI and go with it. The concern, though, is that they would start from there. Yeah, exactly, because then they can't copyright it. The concern is that they would start with that. They'd start with like an AI script, okay? And this is something you can do. You can go on the internet right now and produce an AI movie script, and it'll be bad, but it won't be worse than some movies that you can see coming out now.
Speaking of which, just sidebar real quick, did you guys hear about the lawyer who created a legal argument with AI?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
We can get into that. Yeah.
Anyway, okay.
And it was two of them, and they're facing disbarment. Yes.
Don't do that.
Hilarious.
This is how
with fake legal sightings in it or whatever. Legal
legal citations.
Totally. Like it just makes shit up. Yeah.
Hallucinates.
But this is the big concern. That AI you could start with AI and then go from there. And personally, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Again, like I said, I think it's a tool. Like my wife, she actually uses AI at her job. when she needs to write up certain reports or like personnel reports, things like that. She will use AI to word it in a good groomed professional manner. Like she'll use it for tech writing basically. And then she will of course read over it and change what needs to be changed and check everything to make sure it's all kosher. But this is basically what AI has become. AI has become a glorified tech writer. And that's fine by me because I think tech writing is awful, and anybody who is a professional freelance tech writer is just what are you? You're not a writer. You might as well be an AI. So that doesn't bother me.
Here comes the hate mail.
That frees up all those writers to work on other things, to be more creative, do something with your life. Stop writing instruction manuals.
Hey, instruction manuals are important. They are.
Yeah.
Especially well-written ones.
So I mean, that extends to everything. Like, so yeah, I understand the big copyright concern, and I feel like that is the biggest concern when it comes to AI art, is AIs taking your work, the product of that you have created, and remixing it into something else that is almost unrecognizable. But at what point is that the same as somebody being inspired by your work and writing their own work that's similar? Like, where do you draw that distinction? And yeah, that's the kind of stuff I want to think about. That's the kind of stuff I wanted to discuss. So I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on that.
Yeah, because that leads into my topic.
Yeah, I know you were very similar to me. Yeah.
Which was art and ways of that people are coming up with trying to protect themselves from the scraping. I mean, because you have like, and I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation of it, but Leon 5D or 5B database. It has, if I remember correctly, it is close to 6 billion images that were scraped from the internet, of all kinds of art, photography, what have you, right? And it was created as a research tool, right? And then large companies have come in and bought access to this, jumping on the AI bandwagon and creating, all the art AI tools that you have out there, Stable Diffusion and all those, Mid Journey and whatnot. And it gets back to the theft from the artist, right? I mean, an artist has worked for years to develop a particular style and put hours and hours and hours, years and years and years of work on canvas or film or whatever. And, here comes this research project that's getting used to just generate. And it is a tool. It could be a jumping off point if you're like in a creative rut and you're just trying to get an idea. But there are tools that are coming out now, like Nightshade, and then it's another one is Glaze, that basically you run your image through it before you upload it, and it actually puts artifacts into the image, and a computer doesn't see it the way we do. It's looking at it as data, right? So it puts weird artifacts in there. So if you have, like one of the examples they give is like you have a photograph of a cow and you run it through AI, you use that as part of your model, you start getting weird images of purses. Because that's, one of the things that it does. And it doesn't matter if they download the image. It doesn't matter if they screen capture the image. It's in there, so it's kind of cool to see.
That is pretty neat.
A way of fighting back, even though a lot of the damage is done, right? And part of the other thing I wanted to get into is, the how I see AI, and I think a lot of other people seeing artists seeing AI as kind of this moral stepping stone, like pointing back at us at the things that we are choosing to do and how we are choosing to train these things. Like Adobe has, and I think there's another company who actually have already paid for a lot of their stock images that you can use. They've already reimbursed the artist for use of those. They're basing their AI models on those images and those images alone.
Yeah.
Right? So they're doing it in a more ethical way.
Yeah.
Right? As opposed to, I just want to, I mean, you were talking about writing. I was watching a video earlier last night, I think it was, where a guy bought a how-to drawing tutorial book, but it wasn't actually a book. It was a PDF. The person who actually is making this thing, all they did was AI generate a bunch of drawings, and then AI a bunch of Chat GPT some directions, and it's complete gibberish, right?
So it was an IKEA instruction manual.
I was about to say that sounds like the last set of instructions I received for something I got from China or something.
Yeah, it's like they literally take
translated.
Yeah, they literally take like a line drawing of some of a human head, and literally went over and took like the mouse and actually tried to draw like reverse how you get there. How you start off sketching and you get the basic shape of the head and proportions and whatnot. You can actually see it digress from a good thing to the penmanship and everything is completely wrong. But it's just, I think it's all the stuff that's going on now. It's just making us look at ourselves, right? It's like when we let I forget what it was, an AI chatbot type thing where it started communicating and started spewing out all kind of hateful crap.
It turned into a Nazi. Yeah.
Right. It learned from us.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when you watch those, dystopian AI, Terminator movies, right? To me, it's like if they were to become sentient, there you go. That's they
fault.
Learned
exactly.
Yeah,
we taught them. Yeah, we taught them.
Yeah, we taught them.
Well,
So
I want to.
It's like,
I want to build off.
What
of
does
that.
it say about us that we? What does it say about us that we pump all this art into a computer, and what we want it to do is make Will Smith eat spaghetti? Like, what? What is wrong with us?
I want to touch on 2 points that Joe brought up. Like, first off, like the ethical aspect, right? Like, that's one of the things that we don't preface and stress enough, right? Is ethics, right? And part of that, like, again, I'm gonna go now. Here comes the oligarchy. Is that the oppressed parents aren't able to, like, we have an entire generation of kids, right? And again, Eric brings this up, the latchkey kid concept, right? That started in the late 80s into the 90s and became commonplace in the 90s, and it's progressed, right? And I just did a conference on virtual health and virtual healthcare, and they talked about AI as one of the things. So that's where when this got brought up, I was like, oh yeah. And so I can, like, there's a number of things, but we haven't had parents in, being like, there's an entire generation now that are adults that haven't had parental guidance, right? Or at least proper parental guidance. And when they came home, what was, and again, I know this for a fact because every like doctor's office that you would go into, like, had Jerry Springer on the TV in the waiting room, right? And so they are learning, like, that's what they're being influenced by, right? And how do we teach? Because again, we try to throw in a little bit as teachers, like, as all these different people like to try and throw in a little bit of ethics, but they're not getting the consistent reinforcement to cement that neural pathway. So now they become the adults. They're writing these codes, and you look at like someone like Mark Zuckerberg, who is like almost almost a sociopath, right? Like has such little capacity for empathy, right? And so narcissistic. But that's because that's the generation we raised, because there's no parents being engaged, and we're seeing this rise on this. So they're the ones that are inputting the data in which, like, what you put in with AI, what you put in is what you get out. Just like, when
Ego,
Joe was
garbage
talking
in,
about
garbage out.
the Nazi. Exactly, right? And so now this is what we're producing, and we don't have we don't have these younger leaders that were grounded in ethics, because that was just not a big push for a long while, right? Even like, and you look at our politicians, like we're at a place now that whether you agree with it or not, we have a former president with 96 federal charges, or 96 charges. Like, what are we doing? Like, when we look at this presidential race, what are we doing?
And it's a tie.
Oh my God. Right. And we don't know. We're uncertain, because you know what? The other guy, not that great. Right? Like, and he's just
too old. He's just too old.
No, no, and there's like, and again, like, dude has lost his
only
base.
3 years younger, man.
Oh, I know.
My whole point.
Right.
Whole
But
point
no. Like, and again, dude has lost his entire base because of the concerns of ethics, right? Whether you agree with that or not, his base doesn't find him ethical because of his actions, right? And so you've got one person that's committing is accused of committing crimes on a civil level, and you have another person who's
criminal.
No, but I mean on a personal level, right?
Oh, okay.
And you have his opponent who is supporting someone who has now been globally being considered for global crimes, right? And so, and again, whether you agree with that or not, that's what the base is seeing. So you have someone who's unethical on a personal level and another person who's unethical on a global level. And what are we doing? Right? Like, and so now we're like, and at sometimes I'm like, I would say AI would be a good alternative, but AI is only learning from us. So it's going to be fucking like idiocracy,
garbage
right?
in, garbage out.
Exactly,
garbage
right?
out, yes.
And then like what Joe said with the ethics, like with the ethics of stealing IP, right? Stealing intellectual property of artists to create your thing that you're going to make a profit off of. How is this not theft?
Yeah.
I can't play a song here on our stream because that's copyrighted intellectual property of an artist. Mm-hmm. Then, but if I'm and I get the concept of we all build off of the work of other, we all stand on the shoulders of giants, we learn from people or whatever to create our own thing. But so I get that there's a little bit of like, well, how is that different than you listening to these songs to build your own style, to learn from and pull a little bit from everything? But that is not a person. We have established, like, we can abort, and there's no question about this. We can abort AI at this point in time. Now, maybe like in the future, like we'll be like, hey, the second that you write the code, that's a person, or like whatever. When the finger hits the keyboard, it now becomes
sentient. Then
I know, right? And now we can't abort it, right? Like maybe we'll argue about that in the future.
Won't know
but right now,
it'll just happen. And we won't realize it for years.
Right. And so right now we're at the point that we can abort these AIs without an issue, right?
Or we can choose to raise them right.
Right.
Yeah.
Raise
But
them better.
No, I agree. I
Instead of
agree.
just
But what I'm
orphaning
saying
them
is
and
like
putting them out and like setting them
they
up
are not
about
a
the sea of
person.
the internet.
like what I'm saying is they are not a person, so therefore it is theft. Right? You're trying to equate them to a human being and what the human mind does. We're not there yet, and they aren't that. They don't have personhood. So therefore it is an intellectual property. It is a tool, and so therefore it is theft. That's my feeling on it and my concern.
I mean, I don't disagree, but I think it's also important to remember you brought up music, and I just want to point out that the idea of copyrighting music is only like a generation or two old. It used to be that anybody's music was free to use for anybody, and you basically made money off of your performance of music. That's why in the old days you could just like perform any song written by anybody and you'd be fine. Nobody would care. But nowadays, now we have copyright. Now we have intellectual property. And like we can debate the pros and cons of that. And I personally fall on the side of I like intellectual property. I like copyright. But I mean, like, this is all.
But at the same time, I like covers too.
Yeah, exactly. At the same time, I would love to be able to just go out there and cover everything.
There's not a problem with covers, because when you make a cover, some of that money that you've done goes to the person.
You have to negotiate that with the original
artist. Yeah, as long as it's negotiated. But I mean, like if you're doing a live performance, you're a high school band, and y'all are struggling writing your own music,
out,
and you
Freebird. And
Freebird. You know, it's like all of a sudden, the lawyers are coming out going, "I'm gonna need you to sign this."
No. That's
you're a garage
only
band,
if you do a Metallica.
Yeah, but now you're a garage band and you're being sued by RCA Records for millions of dollars, and you make like $15 on your performance. This is the same problem I have with YouTube copyright systems. It favors the big corporations. It favors the big guy over the little guy. There's no way the little guy can put up a fight. Even if they band together, they always lose.
But aren't covers?
But again, that's
live
because
performances.
But it depends.
No.
There are very weird rules about it.
But
okay, because I've seen so many bands that's like half, like Fish, for example. Like at least 2 songs in every concert are covers from some other band.
Well, if it's a big band, they ask permission. I guarantee it.
Oh, maybe.
So no. But here's like with the RCAs and record companies and things like that, they don't actually produce the art. All they are is a logistical tool. So therefore, because they're not the artist,
but they're the end result of copyright law.
Absolutely,
they wind up owning all the copyrights.
But that's the problem is that and where this like cutting out the middleman becomes a really good boon, because like Dave Matthews Band, like when we were doing like Kazaa and all that stuff, Dave Matthews and Metallica was like, no, you're stealing, this is theft and you're stealing our stuff, right? Dave Matthews Band was like, do it, man, get my music out there. Because also partially Dave Matthews Band wasn't, and just like with Taylor Swift and why she re-recorded all of her stuff, the artists weren't making much money off of that. They were making their money off of the performances. So Dave Matthews Band's like, I don't care. Whereas Metallica's like, I want every single little cent, right? And so that's where it became problematic, because like they tried to formulate it as we're protecting the artist, but we weren't. We were protecting the middleman that owned and gained all the money and stole, the oligarchy that stole the money from the artists, right? Even though they were doing the work. And they were like, no, this is our song. What did you write? How much of that well, we didn't, but we made sure that there's a distribution. We gave them a contract for all this marketing, all this different stuff. And I'm not saying that they didn't do work to get them to get the artists to this point.
I almost was about to start fighting with you, but you
no. I'm not saying that they didn't do things right, but for them to own the rights to the music is where I get an issue, because ultimately that should always go. You should it's like a manager. Look, you get your 10%, right? But you don't own my work.
Yeah.
Right?
I agree with 100%. Yeah.
Own my work.
Yeah.
You're just managing my and I'm paying you for that service.
Yeah, you're managing my record production and distribution rights.
And I'm paying you for that. You don't get to own the actual art that I create.
You're making a percentage of the sales based on, your distribution of my product. Yeah.
Right. And so again, and so when you break it down to a label part aspect, you're always going to get me on board with that, right? And so recognizing and compensating for people's work, I think is absolutely true and fair, right? And so
agreed.
That's my That's where I like. So I think everybody should get their parts, but it's when we worship the golden calf, not any kind of deity. We worship the golden calf and greed. Not all of us, but the ones that are in power, and that's why they get into power, because they're greedy. And so, anyways, all right. So it has been an hour. Are you guys? Do you want to extend it to a half hour? I just did an hour because I wasn't sure about Damien, your time frame. I know last time you were getting.
I do need to get going. There's been an accident right behind me. I'm sure you've
Okay.
seen me looking back by one of the cats, and it's not going anywhere, so I wasn't that worried about it, but I would like to clean it up.
No problem. All right. So
because it stinks.
I think we
No
actually
problem.
said
So-
everything we wanted to say on the topic.
Yeah.
So I think we did
yeah.
good.
Okay. So I will say, like, in art or in healthcare, it's this is something I talked about as far as like the way that AI can. I just want to mention about healthcare, and that I brought up was that.
I just also want to say that in 2000.
Again, I don't get to get
I
to
wrote
my
a
topic
novel.
on it.
I wrote a novel called
I'm sorry,
Thessia, which I
Scott.
never
Fucking
published.
assholes.
And I really wish I had published it. In 2004, I was talking about AI helping a telehealth therapist. In 2004, I wrote that. I just want to
Awesome.
take my victory
Awesome, Eric.
lap.
Yeah. he predicted
But,
the future.
Like AI.
You should
I-
write for The
and-
Simpsons.
Yeah, really.
Like no, but like what we talked about is and this is a university expert that focuses on AI and healthcare and everything, and he's like, it will never replace a provider. Like, it just can't. And we were like really kind of like, there's a number of people that were really.
I've seen Idiocracy. They have a machine in the future that can do that. So
No, but
No, so
let Scott finish because I have a point I want to add to his.
yeah.
yeah, okay.
So it will never replace, because it just like the things that we worry about again is more sci-fi than reality, right? And not to say that there aren't things in
You're
the
saying
future.
there's a difference.
Yeah, I know, right? And so not to say that there aren't concerns that we need to be, and ethics that we need to be monitoring and mindful of, right? And that's why, again,
Science fiction is for.
I posted a Facebook post on my personal Facebook about like the silence, our majority silence on things, because we're so overwhelmed, so stressed, and I get why, right? We're oftentimes so silent is because like that's what social media is for, is just to rant and rave and then move on with our life, right? Rather than actually doing something to like, make things better. But I agree with Damien that these are things that we need to be aware of, and to make sure that we're active with our politicians. Calling a politician makes a huge difference, because nobody freaking calls a politician, right? And so if you get even 3 people, right, but even then they don't call. The people that call are the lobbyists, but the average person doesn't ever call. Rarely calls. So like when I talk to politicians about like trying to get healthcare rights for certain providers to, or provider rights and things like that, when I tried to talk to them about like money in politics, they were like, what, you want to call me and talk? You're my constituent and you want to talk to me about this? This is so again, but being vigilant, communicating with our politicians, all these different things can actually make a difference if enough of us do this. So being vigilant and being mindful. When it comes to healthcare, it can improve our workload so that we're doing less of the administrative aspects and being able to focus on the client, right? One of the things I brought up was, what are the backstops in this to prevent it? Because where we're at right now is like, we come up with all of these advantages and things like that, but all that means is that we oppress the healthcare worker more, right? And physicians now are getting significantly oppressed and burnt out. We have the great resignation when it comes to healthcare happening right now. We are losing nurses. We are losing physicians. We are losing nurse practitioners. We're losing PAs because of the oppressive setup, right? And that AI is supposed to actually help and improve this. But because you have a financial drive, and as much as these are not for profit, that's a total load of crap. But they can funnel because the not-for-profit executives make bonuses just like the for-profit based on financial returns. So they get a financial incentive when their employees are doing more with less, right? So I brought up, like, what are some of the backstops? There are none right now. Like, and that's the issue, is that there are none. But the person that was speaking, the professor that was speaking, that was like, we need to have these, and these need to, and I agree with that. And I was like, but what is actually there? Like, there's not. And I'm like, but that's the problem. And I was like, that's the issue, is that the people that actually, like, us average people in healthcare that are doing the work don't have a voice. And we can try and we can speak with our legislation, or with our like the AMA and the ANA and all these organizations, to try and lobby on our behalf. But the people that are actually at the table making these things aren't advocating vociferously enough for ethics, because the financial drive still overpowers the ethical drive. Sorry, Joe, go for it.
No, but it was going with the idea of not being replaceable, with AI. Because another story I read was where a company laid off its designers and started outsourcing to some AI people, right? Mm-hmm. And the thing is with AI is you can't make subtle changes to things unless you're going in and redoing it by hand, right? No matter how detailed you get in the prompt, you're going to get a completely different image.
Yep.
Right? You might get some, very close variation, but that specific, like, if somebody wants just a specific character changed from, one position to another position, just for a better flow, right? That's something AI cannot do. You have to go in and do that yourself. And when they started going, well, we really need this image to look like be this, and they're sending it back, and all they're doing is getting variations of it that aren't what they're asking for. They realize, oh, we screwed up, right? No matter how good of a tool it is, it can't make those critical decisions that a human can. It can't have the emotional impact that a human could put in behind it. I mean, it can still be beautiful, but a lot of times the AI art you see, it's like you look at it for 5 seconds. Oh, that's pretty, like, and move on, right? Mm-hmm. It's
I've seen some AI generated floor plans, because that's one other way that they've attempted to apply it. And I guess the AI was never taught that humans require bathrooms. Is for one the thing I saw. Another thing was awesome. Lack of, like, half of the kitchen that's required for cooking, and things like stairs that go nowhere, and windows.
The MC Escher house.
Yeah, it's the Escher house.
Winchester
bedrooms without doors. There's
who needs privacy?
But then there's a lot of other stuff that's being done in some of the better programs out there. For designing houses and whatnot, that where it's like code oversight, where it will let you know if your stairs don't meet code. It'll let you know if you didn't include certain things like egress from a bedroom, secondary egress from a bedroom, blah 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 blah. So there are uses for it where it's like augmenting, error correction kind of stuff.
That's a good use of a tool.
Looking for where we humans screw up and making sure that, it's corrected before it's set out there into the world, kind of thing. But
or like buy plans for what part, all the materials you're going to need, being able to quickly calculate stuff like that.
Figure that stuff out a lot quicker than we can. So
yes, absolutely, right. So. Or even like when it comes to healthcare, right? When you're sitting there and it's recording, like it's listening to the conversation and documenting for you, and then entering, and if it has the base of the information of the diagnostic codes and things like that and the diagnostic criteria, it's entering the rule out for certain diagnoses, and then bringing in like, hey, there's this that it could be, it's this, it's this, it's this. And then as it's prompting you with certain things, you start to ask questions about those. And then it's shifting those to rule outs and documenting not only your rule ins, but your rule outs, so that when you have to submit that to an insurance, it's as a provider, okay, you're like, done, sign off, like read it, sign off, move on to the next client, right? And then, clients aren't waiting as long for their providers to get to them. There's not a 6-month waiting list because of all the administrative time that your provider has to do, right? For you to be able to just get in for this emergency or for this, care, right? And then when you submit it to the insurances would have a harder time of denying something, because they're like, well, why didn't you, a lot of times as a provider, if you're seeing like 30 to 50 patients in a day, right? In an 8 to 12 hour day, that's an insane amount of people. You have no capacity to put in all of those rule outs. But that's when the insurances get into this denial process, because why didn't you rule this out? Why didn't you rule that out? We can't reimburse you because it could have been this, it could have been that, could have been that, these things where AI can put that in, and you're more likely to get compensated as a provider. Insurances, you're not fighting as much with the insurances, and it can benefit the client because now the client's like, my service got paid by the insurance, which I'm paying for, and they should pay for it because I bought that, right? And so instead of like going like, your insurance won't pay for this, but we still did the work, so now you have to pay me, right? And you're getting the $400 bill rather than your insurance paying for the $400 bill, even though you paid $20,000 a year for this insurance to do that, right? It's an insane process. But again, that's where AI can help, right? And really, make things life on a personal and individual financial, like for you as the average person, make it better for you. And so it has its place, right? But that's why we say like it's a support and efficiency for a person, but not a replacement for a person.
All right. With that, I really need to go here.
Yeah. All right.
It's been good, guys.
See y'all in 2 weeks. Hey, everybody, if you're listening to this, check the chat, because I put in a bunch of links on the topics that we talked about, so that you guys can look those up yourselves also. So make sure, like, sometimes people watch the video and won't look at the chat, but I put those in the chat, so they're great reads to kind of help support with what we were talking about. Joe, if you can find that, I think you sent me the video on the guy that talked about the company that replaced the art. I think that's why I know it, because I think you sent it to me. So if you're able to
I'll look for it. Yeah,
if you're able to link that, it might be in one of our chats, but if you're able to link that into this chat too, that's a great video, right? And it shows.
Right.
And I put in the legal eagle about the legal brief that the lawyers did. But so see y'all in 2 weeks, and we'll go from there. Check out all of our other stuff. And again, like I said, like we said, follow Eric today in an hour, a little less than an hour.
Yep. Don't go too far
45
from
minutes.
your computers, people.
That's right. In 45 minutes, Eric's going to do his video on disaster movies. All right. Much love, y'all.
All right.
Get some coffee, sir.
Bye.
Yes. Coffee.
Bye.
Caffeinate. Bye.
Coffee.